And we are back. At this point, the Russian Drift Series might want to consider renaming the championship into the Rainy Drift Series. So far, not a single event this year has been held under dry weather. The latest stage in Krasnoyarsk was especially bad in that regard. Conditions were apocalyptic, and this had to be the most difficult race of the year so far, for everybody involved, including drivers, teams, the spectators, the race organizers who had to work around the awful weather, and the production team making these videos, and making sense of what's going on out on the track in order to make a coherent review. But enough complaining. Presenting Stage 5 of the nation's premier drifting series. First off, there were fewer drivers on the roster for this event, sadly. Due to technical issues, Predator Drift Team had to pull out, comprised of Alexander Abramov, Ilya Palashuk, and Alexei Kozlov. Also, for reasons beyond their control, Nikita Shikov, Alexei Vakhtin, and Vladislav Yerofeyev couldn't make it. But the qualifying session was still a contest, with 33 drivers entered and 32 available spots, in case anyone forgot. The assignment included a classic initiation after accelerating for 126 meters, and a 705-meter-long scored section. But there were also quite a few changes. 11 clipping points, 2 of them concurrent, 3 and 4, which were very valuable, by the way. A good 6 no-go zones, a few bottlenecks. Those were just some of the challenges prepared by the judges. The plans also included a bunch of minimum speed restrictions for the leader, together with penalties for not complying. And as you can tell by the picture, these restrictions were particularly strict for the initiation. The rest of the assignment is on your screens, and with that, let's cover qualifying. Just like so many times throughout the season, the weather decided to play games. It was mostly dry until that point, but right before qualifying began, drops of rain started falling from the sky. And so Group 1, consisting of Andrei Ostapov, Anton Dmitrienko, Artur Zelyony, Arkady Tsarogratsev, Pyotr Borodin, and Sergei Kuznetsov, had the misfortune of going out during a transitional period, which affected the scores up until after the third run. They repealed those strict minimum speed restrictions. Ultimately, the worst result that was taken into account was Artur Zelyony's score of 60.5 points for his first attempt. This wasn't the worst score, but after receiving 50.5, Anton Dmitrienko opted for the health group. Both of them happened to go out before restrictions were lifted. From there, scores were mostly very good. Ostapov got 96.5 points for his second run, while Tsarogratsev and Kuznetsov scored 90+ for both of their respective runs. 96.5 and 95 for Arkady, 94.5 and 95.5 for Sergei, and not a single zero in this group. Group 2, consisting of Leonid Schneider, Dmitry Sherbina, Kirill Mickiewicz, Dmitry Yermokin, Damir Idiatulin, and Anton Kozlov, went out in pouring rain, yet still managed to do pretty well. Sherbina and Yermokin were the only ones who got less than 90 points. Everyone else surpassed that mark 2 times each, except for Idiatulin, who did so just once. The best of the group was Schneider with his score of 96.5. Though because his second attempt was worse, he was still behind Tsarogratsev in qualifying. And once again, no zeros. By the time Group 3 went out, consisting of Yevgeny Losiev, Ilya Popov, Artyom Shabanov, Anatoly Kizin, and Denis Sorkapud, the rain had stopped and the track was slowly starting to dry. Regardless, scores were still pretty high. Kizin and Sorkapud were the only ones who couldn't crack the 90-point threshold. The highest score for this group, a 95, was posted by Shabanov, and to everybody's delight, once again, no zeros. The track continued to dry, unevenly of course, which was causing trouble for the drivers and the teams. And this group, comprised of Vladislav Popov, Sergei Sak, Danila Skarbogatov, Ilya Fyodorov, Danila Vorobyov, and Maxim Grossman, was seriously affected by the conditions. Scores dropped, and considerably. The majority of scores was no longer 90+. The worst result for the group was Vorobyov's second attempt, 73.5, and just 2 drivers, Vorobyov and Popov, made a single 90+ point attempt each. But Maxim Grossman, who practically lives in these parts, put on a masterclass, scoring 90.5 points for his first run and 97.5 for his second, which earned him best in qualifying status. Very impressive given the conditions. By Group 5, the track had almost fully dried and scores were on the rise. 2 drivers couldn't crack the 90-point mark, Artyom Leitis and none other than Georgy Chivchyan. However, in Gocha's case, he was just half a point short for his best attempt, while for Artyom, things were not going his way at all. 80 and 80.5 points, which, spoiler, wasn't enough for him to qualify. For everybody else, namely Grigory Burlutsky, Roman Tividor, and Anton Kliemko, things went great. Tividor was just half a point short in his worst attempt to contend with Grossman for the lead, with him scoring 97.5 for his best run. And once again, no zeros. But in the final group, number 6, they unexpectedly materialized, all due to Grigory Gusiev and Yevgeny Spirin experiencing issues with their cars. Both joined Dmitrienko in the health group. The others, Ivan Pelman, Timofey Dobrovolsky, and Denis Miguel, did quite well. Miguel slightly worse than the rest, 87 and 89.5. The other two easily cracked the 90-point threshold, with Pelman posting the highest score of 95.5. And finally the health group, and some pretty decent scores here. Anton Dmitrienko 87.5, Yevgeny Spirin 92.5, Grigory Gusiev 94.5. Maxim Grossman ended up becoming best in qualifying. My first attempt didn't quite go as I intended. I wanted the surface to either be totally wet or fully dry. But as usual, conditions were mixed, but I still did pretty well and was even best in qualifying. During the qualifying session, my car was perfectly fine, but after qualifying began, it started to rain. At some point, the track began to dry, and I was driving on a mixed surface. It was slippery in some spots, and I knew that I had to score as many points as I can to earn myself a higher spot in the ranks. But I slipped up a few times, and my results were not so great. I went slightly off course. You'd hope that there wouldn't be any more rain, but no. Right before the start of the top 32 stage, it resumed. For crying out loud. That being said, up until a point, even though it was creating issues for the drivers and the teams, but it wasn't putting much workload onto the judges. The first few pairings were easy to judge. Basically, whoever didn't make any severe mistakes got a pass. Maxim Grossman easily beat Artur Zolioni, all because Artur failed to initiate properly early on in the battle, straightening out and earning 0 points. From there, all Grossman had to do was not mess up, which he didn't. The duel between Vladislav Popov and Yevgeny Spirin was also a foregone conclusion. While following, Spirin went into a 102-degree backwards drift, then he blocked Popov's transition while going into opposite drift. And while in the lead, he allowed 3 wheels to go off course. An obvious win for Popov. Pyotr Borodin tapped Damir Idiatulin during the initiation, but Damir stayed on course while Pyotr did not and spun out. Round 2, and as was the case with Grossman, Damir left Borodin no chance. The battle between Anton Kozlov and Anatoly Kizin basically repeated the previous one. It was over as soon as they initiated during round 1. A tap and a 0 for Kizin. Also, Anatoly didn't initiate all that well when he was leading. An obvious win for Kozlov. But the next pair of contenders gave the judges something to ponder, as you'll soon find out. Denis Sorokapud gave Leonid Schneider a tap during the initiation, which we've already seen before, but instead of spinning out, he was putting immense pressure on his opponent the entire way. Leonid, in the meantime, missed touch and go too, but that was his only mistake. From there, he got a good lead run in. They switch positions, and we see some pretty odd driving from the leader, Sorokapud. First, he was obviously trolling his opponent while they were accelerating, and even from there it appeared as if Leonid was being slightly cheeky, with Schneider constantly getting stifled by the leader, to the point of almost straightening out in one spot. After a bit of thought, the judges sent this one to a one more time, which seemed to be the reasonable thing to do, as both engaged in some questionable actions. The next pair gave the judges a proper headache, and left the fans scratching their heads, of course. Timofey Dobrovolsky was clean and accurate in the lead, which Danil Vorobyev decided to thoroughly take advantage of, literally tapping his opponent in every transition, and then in other spots in an attempt to not even stay close but stay on top of his rival, which actually threw the leader off on 2 occasions. In the lead, Vorobyev was fairly clean. Timofey started a bit further away, but then he lunged at his opponent, tore his bumper off, and fell behind slightly after that. Many people, including some of the drivers, were expecting an OMT, but no. Let's hear it straight from the source. As a matter of fact, the key aspect here was the initiation, when Timofey was the leader and Dan Vorobyev was following. While Timofey was rotating, Dan gave his rear end a hit. That in turn created sort of an impulse for Timofey, which was the reason why he went off course, and was forced to try and pull his car towards the inner touch-and-go too. In all other areas, they were pretty much on equal footing. Also, in the final transition, Dan... Suffice to say that his transition was pretty reckless. Now, I like seeing stuff like that, but it's not necessarily in line with the rules. And he was slightly out of step. But the initiation was a critical component here, and we're ruling in favor of Timofey. The editor was not satisfied with this explanation, and he questioned the judges while the broadcast was still live. Turns out Mikhail failed to hash out something very important. The rules say that a tap that was the chaser's fault and that threw off the leader is considered a serious or even severe mistake, which is the final stage before it's deemed critical, 50 to 100% removed per sector, Article 7.4.27. And this happened to Danilo twice. Timofey, in the meantime, was quite a bit further behind, Sector 2 aside, and even there a tap that resulted in so much damage didn't change the leader's trajectory, and the two just continued driving. The cars were damaged, and that's it. Refer to same article in the rulebook. So he made just one mistake, and a minor one. Also, Dobrovolsky cut a corner through the no-go, but if you're close, you don't receive a penalty for that. It's clear where the judges were coming from, but the editor still would have liked to see an OMT, with how well Vorobyev did in the chase. I was very happy to find out I was up against Dan Vorobyev. He is very easy for me to follow. And overall, he's just a great dude. I wanted to demonstrate some tight tandem drifting, and I got that opportunity. He did give me a few nudges when he was following me, and I responded in kind, but honestly, I didn't do it on purpose. It's just that I sort of misread the position of the rear end of his BMW. But then again, for whatever reason, it's always E36s that I'm getting into incidents with during the transitions. The next few battles were once again easy to read, up until a point. Andrei Ostapov and Sergei Sak were more or less on par in the lead, but while following, the former was way closer than the latter, which earned him the win. The battle between Artyom Shabanov and Denis Miguel effectively was decided during the initiation in round 1, just like on a few occasions prior. Denis at first assumed an enormous angle, after which he briefly went into an opposite drift. From there he was really giving it his all, but it was already too late. During the second portion of the heat, Shabanov fell really far behind the leader while accelerating and initiating, albeit you can't accuse him of inactive chasing. From there, Artyom caught up with Denis and stuck with him at medium distance. And landed a spot in the top 16. The heat between Roman Tivadar and Dmitry Yermokin was also effectively over after the initiation, though it wasn't Dmitry's fault. It would appear as if his engine stalled. The second round also didn't go too well for Yermokin. It did for Tivadar though, with him progressing to the next stage of the competition. Grigory Gusiev and Yevgeny Losiev, and again it's the initiation. Gusiev was unchaseable, 102 degrees and 25 kilometers an hour. To Losiev's credit, he was able to work around it without even straightening out or a tap. Both drivers made it to the finish, one of them with a score of 0. It should be fairly obvious who exactly. The second round went quite nicely, but this battle was already over, with Losiev winning. Ivan Pelman and Danil Skorobogatov. During the first portion of this duel, Ivan made a few mistakes in the lead, missing touch-and-go 2 and allowing a wheel off, 23 points for line. Danilo was cautious at first, but then got close and stayed there until the end. They trade places. Skorobogatov gets a decent lead run in, 30 points for line, while Pelman, fully realizing he needs to put in some effort, was all over his opponent all the way to the beginning of Sector 3, where he did slightly fall behind, but he didn't tap him once. Skorobogatov seemingly had the upper hand here, but it was still close enough that it could have gone to an OMT, which was reflected in the decision made by the judges. Davidians had Skorobogatov winning, while Safonov and Delgikh ruled in favor of a one more time. Anton Kliemko and Georgy Chivchyan, in that exact order, and this was actually a tricky one. Gaucho, while following, was not going nuts like Pelman, but he was close. Anton, meanwhile, missed the valuable touch-and-go too, with him getting 25 points for line. In the lead, Gaucho hit all of the clips, though one of his wheels did go off course once, meaning he scores 28 points for line. Kliemko fell behind right after they initiated, but then caught up and stuck really close. It was close enough to go to an OMT, but let's hear the judges out. During the initiation, while following, Gaucho was closer. After the dotted line in Sector 1, Kliemko was closer while following. Also during the transition approaching touch-and-go 4. But while leading, Kliemko missed the mark, missing the second inner touch-and-go. And he increased his angle in an attempt to push his car towards it, and once he misses and he realizes he'll be seriously penalized for it, he continues on his way. But yeah, points removed for his lead run. For Gaucho, one of his wheels went off course, that's 2 points removed. Aside from that, their lead runs were very linear and similar, if we look past the line-related mistakes. Sector 2, while following, Kliemko was better almost the entire way, as we see it. But as for Sector 3, there Gaucho did a better job, in our estimation. And because of Kliemko making that mistake while he was in the lead, which cost him 5 points, increasing his angle, that's a serious offense, Vladimir Safonov and I decided to give the win to Gaucho. I had to really think about it. I was carefully analyzing Sector 1, and it just makes more sense to rule in favor of Chivchyan in this case. Now, according to my calculations, Georgy Chivchyan has a 5-point advantage for his lead run. As for why I was arguing with the other two judges in favor of sending this to an OMT, the way I see it, Anton stuck closer over a longer distance both during the transitions as well as while they were going through the curves. Despite the fact that he didn't do as well with the initiation, and he lost the competition through the early sector where the ones are located, but everywhere else he was closer most of the way. Now, another reason is that there were certain stretches, I'm referring to the final bits of Sector 3, the way I see it, Anton was closer there as well. And when taking all of that into account, My math shows that Anton made up for that 5-point handicap, and that an OMT would be the right decision to make in my opinion. Thank you. Moving along, we are 2 battles away from the point where things got a bit crazy, but those were clear-cut. First, Ilya Fyodorov pushed Arkady Tsargradzev off course during the initiation, and then in that same spot but while leading, he was unchaseable. Arkady's performance was on point, and so he will carry on. After that, Ilya Popov, who was being followed by Grigory Berlutsky, spun out all of a sudden. The two collide and it's over. Clearly Popov was at fault here. Round 2, both drivers performed very well, but just like on multiple occasions today, it didn't matter. Berlutsky is in the top 16. From there, it would seem as if someone got bored and decided to spice things up a bit. Sergei Kuznetsov versus Anton Dmitrienko. At first it was going well, though as the leader Kuznetsov did miss touch and go too, but from there he was on point. Dmitrienko meanwhile was somewhat far behind, but after touch and go 4, his chasing was tight. But here's where things get tricky. From there it would appear as if Anton also misses touch and go 2, as well as 7/2. Sergei in the meantime charges at his opponent during the initiation, assumes an angle of 97 degrees, barely manages to dial it back, and is somehow able to stick close the entire way. Seems like a mistake, but if you closely examine this one, there is a caveat. While initiating, Anton got on the handbrake and stayed on it for a prolonged period of time, which is not an easy thing for the chaser to work around. So this is either a win for Kuznetsov or an OMT. Kuznetsov did appear to have a slight edge, an opinion shared by Mikhail Davidians, but the other 2 judges sent these 2 to a 1 more time. The reason for that being Dolgikh and Safonov decided that first of all Kuznetsov also made the mistake of lingering on the initiation for a bit too long, and second, Dmitrienko did earn that OMT thanks to his terrific chase run. That's 2 against 1, and this pair will go at it one more time. The next battle was slightly easier to read. In the lead, Kirill Mickiewicz only missed touch and go 6, but overall his driving wasn't super smooth. Dmitry Sherbina was surprisingly calm and collected while following, but he did a good job with it. They switch places, Kirill does a backwards drift while initiating in the chase, falling behind in the process, though he did catch up later on. Dmitry also made some mistakes while leading, missing touch and go 7/2 and 8, earning 24 points for line, on top of questionable angle and style. So neither driver did particularly well in the lead, but following Sherbina was superior, which earned him the win. The second battle between Ivan Palman and Danila Skorobogatov was also more or less clear-cut. As per tradition for this event, there were taps and mistakes made by both. Ivan earned a mere 22 points for line, missing touch and go 2 and 7/2. Danila in turn allowed 3 wheels off course, with 2 of them even hitting the grass, and he tapped his opponent. However, in the lead, he did a fantastic job, earning the full 30 points despite even receiving a good hit from Palman during initiation. Skorobogatov progresses to the top 16. The following 2 pairs gave each other, their cars, and the judges a rough time. First, Sergei Kuznetsov and Anton Dmitrienko just couldn't decide which one of them makes it to the top 16. Round 1, and Kuznetsov effectively forfeits the win to Dmitrienko due to his axle shaft breaking. It would seem as if Anton is just a by-run away from winning this battle, but instead, Star Pure Stars Imol's mechanics by some miracle managed to get Sergei's car up and running within the 5-minute timeout. The light goes green, Sergei's putting pressure on Anton from start to finish, with the latter missing touch and go 5 and then 7/2. And then right before the finish line, the Silvia gets tapped on the door, which causes it to almost straighten out, but the hit was on one side and the movement was in the other direction. After a bit of thought, here's the decision that the judges came out with. During the broadcast, they said that it was all down to Dmitrienko straightening out at the finish line. And if the video editor agreed at first, then after requesting input from Davidans as to why he voted for Dmitrienko, he suddenly got to thinking. When looking closely at the footage, it's clear that Anton crossed the line in a drift, with the drift dynamics data indicating a residual angle of about 7 degrees. Why 0 points then? Dolgikh gave an answer to this question. The way they see it, Dmitrienko let off the gas at the finish line, and his angle was a result of Kuznetsov nudging him. In other words, unchaseable run and 0 points. The problem wasn't him straightening out, it's just that at some point Anton quit for whatever reason. The second OMT was much more straightforward. Kuznetsov, while leading, missed 7/2, but that's about it. Otherwise, he did alright. Dmitrienko, in the meantime, made plenty of mistakes in the lead. Hitting the no-go twice, also he blew past touch-and-goes 2 and 9, and both of the 7s. And while following, he was only close in Sector 2. And so after all of that drama, Kuznetsov earns the win. The final pair, and things just keep getting better and better. For round 1, we saw a terrific performance from both Leonid Schneider and Denis Sorokopud, albeit Leonid went off course a few times, earning 26 points, though otherwise he did well. Denis, meanwhile, was pressuring his opponent the entire way, and while barely even tapping him. Then they switch positions, Sorokopud blows past touch-and-go 2, that's -5 points for line, and he was struggling to maintain pace. Schneider, meanwhile, was very close during the initiation, though not so much through sectors 2 and 3. In a split decision, the judges rule in favor of a second OMT. The second OMT did not clear things up at all. After touch-and-go 5, the two cars snagged each other, and right there the round was over. The judges took maybe about 20+ minutes to think this over, and came to the following verdict, for the first time in the history of the Russian Drift Series. This is the most complicated incident of the year so far, out of the ones I had to analyze. We have a stark contrast of opinions. I think Leonid Schneider is at fault for the incident, and here's why. According to the assignment, when moving away from touch-and-go 4, pace is supposed to be increasing. Now, in that spot where they collided, Leonid's speed was a bit too low, just a little bit, by about 1 km an hour. In any case, his speed was not increasing, in fact, he was slowing down. And Leonid went off course before the concrete, on the concrete, and after the concrete as well. And concrete is even more slippery than pavement, in case you didn't know. And so I think Leonid is at fault for this incident. Let's hear what the next judge has to say. I'll be concise. I don't necessarily agree with Misha on this. Yes, the assignment does say that you're supposed to accelerate in that area, but there is also such a thing as maintaining pace. But the key component here is that Denis Sorokopud failed to position his car correctly. He was moving on the inside when he was supposed to be following Leonid. If that would have been the case, I would have made a completely different call. Denis found some grip, and his speed rapidly increased by 10 km an hour, which is what caused the collision. And so the way I see it, Denis Sorokopud is to blame for the collision. Now a third opinion. I referred to Article 7.428, when both the leader and the chaser are at fault for a collision. Now, as my colleagues mentioned previously, one of them maintains that Leonid Schneider, he hit a slippery patch of the track and was unable to accelerate. He was obviously on the gas, and a moment before he went off course, he was trying to rectify the situation, but he couldn't. Meanwhile, Denis, who was in a suboptimal position on the inside, where he found a dry patch of pavement. Anyway, this was not the best position for him to follow in. He also made a mistake. He was moving over dry pavement and caught up to his opponent. The two collide and the round is over. Both are at fault, in my opinion. Article 7.428 is mutual liability, and so, in my opinion, neither of them deserve the victory. What's there to even say? This is a very complicated situation, but the conclusion is clear as day. Both are at fault for the collision. 0 points for both of them, and an OMT no matter what happens during round 2. OMTs are limited to 2, Schneider scored higher in qualifying, and as such, he progresses to the next competition stage. The second round was effectively just a formality that meant nothing. The hope was that day 2 of the event would be somewhat smoother, but that was not to be. On day 2, the track was literally flooded. There were hurricane-level winds, to the point where even the electricity went out on one occasion. Some even thought that the race should be cancelled. But technical services and the RDS team were working miracles that day, even digging trenches to get the water off of the track. They held an emergency briefing and made some last-minute corrections to the assignment. The leader no longer had to hit Touch and Go 5 due to a huge puddle, though spoiler, drivers were going there anyway. Also, around Touch and Goes 3 and 4, the judges allowed for the rear wheels to go off, but not the fronts. For the follow car, proximity, synchronicity, and the line were no longer taken into account, as long as they'd catch up to the leader by Touch and Go 4. But few were taking advantage of this, because it is hard to reprogram muscle memory. And of course, speed restrictions were lifted. Okay, let's get started. The first heat between Maxim Grossman and Vladislav Popov, and already there's a lot going on. Round 1 was fairly straightforward, Maxim got a terrific lead run in, Vlad was close at the start, then right around Touch and Go 5 and 6 he fell behind somewhat, and almost straightened out while hitting a puddle. Then he caught up, but it was not what you'd call a tight finish. Round 2, Grossman slams into Popov while initiating, almost straightens out, with the drift dynamics data showing he was at an angle of about 14 degrees for an extended period of time. But then he got it together and stuck close. Vlad in the meantime went off course twice. Also, he missed Touch and Goes 2 and 9. Maxim probably contributed to him missing the former. Seems like we're looking at an OMT with Popov maybe having a slight edge. But here's the decision made by the judges. Those puddles are just the worst. We brought them up during the briefing, but our first battle and we see what actually happens. And so at that puddle, Maxim Grossman nearly straightened out. I counted that as straightening out. After the initiation at the second inner Touch and Go. As for Popov at Touch and Go 6, he went too deep into the no-go. Is that a 0 or not? I guess it is. And for me, those mistakes they made while following were the key factor. Granted, they did collide during the initiation, but while chasing, Grossman was closer. Popov was going more for a save run. That being said, I wasn't impressed by either of their chase runs. But now they're familiar with the surface, they know what to do, and so I suggest we watch them go at it one more time, now that they know how to deal with the conditions. If you didn't notice where Popov nullified his efforts, the answer is in the drift dynamics data. Yes, these are too close to zeros. Dolgikh and Safanov considered them as severe but not critical mistakes. And let's not forget about the conditions. Drivers were trying to figure out if it's possible to drive, and if it is, then how. Safanov posited that Popov's mistake was less severe than Grossman's, and had Vladislav winning. But it's 2 against 1, and this goes to an OMT. That run in the lead had to be my best during this entire event. I didn't make a single mistake. I mean, not that I didn't even make one mistake. I had to have corrected or something, but I hit every clip, I was fast, and I had a look at the data, and everything was on point. While following, I initiated, and I had to respond somehow. I gave him a good lead run. He did a good job following me. And so I had to respond. I was close behind him, but it seemed as if he started to brake too early. Even if I did hit him, it wasn't hard. We kept right on going. I think that tap didn't affect anything. Well, I think Vladislav Popov should have won, based on round 1. I don't think he deserved a 0, and the fact that he got stuck in that puddle, it didn't prevent him from carrying on with the battle. Damir Idiatulin and Anton Kozlov, and this was only a bit easier to read. In the lead, Damir hit every clip. Anton was close until the 7s, where he fell behind ever so slightly. During round 2, both drivers couldn't properly initiate, which was Kozlov's fault. But from there, Anton hit everything except for 5, which drivers were allowed to skip. Meanwhile, Idiatulin was struggling to maintain pace, only catching up to his opponent by sector 3. But looking at the initiation, it's clear that Damir's issues were initially caused by Anton, who created an unchased situation with his 7-degree initiation, preventing his opponent from properly initiating. The judges took that into account and gave this one to Idiatulin. Leonid Schneider and Timothy Dobrovolsky. Round 1 went fine, Leonid did a decent job leading, Timothy was close everywhere aside from the aforementioned area where it wasn't mandatory. Round 2 and another collision during the initiation. Dobrovolsky assumed a massive angle of 89 degrees. Schneider, who was trying to keep up, gives his competitor a good hit and stops in his tracks. Timofey makes it to the finish. And now let's refer to the assignment. A serious, though not critical, mistake would have been an angle above 95 degrees, meaning that Dobrovolsky didn't even make it into that realm. Also, he was carrying some pretty decent speed, 79 kilometers an hour with a peak value being as high as 108. Meanwhile, Leonid was taking a gamble, attempting to preserve some momentum after getting up to speed. It just didn't pay off. Dobrovolsky wins this one. Andrei Ostapov versus Artyom Shabanov. Andrei hit every clip while leading. Artyom was struggling to keep up, sticking at a medium distance the entire way. With the roles inverted, Shabanov also earns the full 30, but Ostapov stuck somewhat closer and won. Though Davidance wanted an OMT. According to his math, Shabanov's lead run was cleaner overall. While following, Shabanov won the first sector, Sector 2 was 50-50, Sector 3 one transitioned better, the other was closer. However, the other two judges disagreed. During the battle between Roman Tividor and Yevgeny Losiev, something really strange happened. During the initiation, Losiev's Supra gives Tividor's Silvia a slight nudge, and Roman spins out. And it took replaying the footage multiple times to notice this. Yes, it was a light tap, according to both of the drivers. But this has to be the first time ever when the chaser pushed the leader not sideways, not forward, but upwards. The Supra's front end somehow found its way under the Silvia, and in that critical moment when the leader was carrying a sideways impulse, the rear was lifted, load was taken off of the axle, and the car spun out. According to Roman's own account of the incident, he says braking or using the handbrake in that spot is impossible, and he didn't make much of the tap, like there was some crunching in the back, whatever. There was no push, but the car was not doing what it was supposed to be doing. Yevgeny in turn had no idea how something like this could be possible, and obviously he disagreed with the ruling that he was to blame for Tividor spinning out, with him receiving a 0 for the first portion of the heat. The second round went well, but neither driver made any critical mistakes, with Tividor progressing to the top 8 stage. At least this one had a clear outcome, once again due to a tap. Round 1 went mostly well. Danila Skorobogatov earned his 30 line points, while Georgy Chivchyan, who chose to follow first, fell slightly behind at the initiation, but then caught up and stuck close the entire way. But then in round 2, Danila's E92 gave the Z a good hit, with Georgy spinning out. And there is no doubt as to who's to blame here. Out of showmanship, both drivers made it to the end, albeit inverted. Chivchyan wins. At first, the heat between Arkady Tsarogradsev and Grigory Burlutsky appeared to be clear-cut. Arkady scores 25 line points, missing touch-and-go 2. Compare that to Grigory going off course twice and also missing touch-and-go 2, earning just 21 points. And Arkady was closer while following. Victory was this close, but then it turned out that Tsarogradsev gave Burlutsky a push during the initiation. And again upwards, like in the Losiev-Tividor incident. Here's what the judges had to say about this. For lead runs, Tsarogradsev -5 points, Burlutsky -7. Tsarogradsev was slightly tighter while following. Burlutsky was close, but not quite as close as Tsarogradsev was. But during the initiation, where so many things went wrong for Burlutsky, after 1.2, this was actually caused by Arkady Tsarogradsev because, if you look at the footage, the part that we've replayed a couple of times, his rear end was lifted up in the air, so it was a tangible collision. On dry pavement, it's a completely different story, but when the track is wet, these sort of things don't do any favors for the leader. The way we see it, Tsarogradsev did make a mistake during the initiation, and so we're ruling for an OMT. Makes sense? During the following battle, there was another tap and a ruling made because of it. But this situation was similar to the Skorobogatov-Chivchyan incident. Dmitry Sherbina with his Mark II gave Sergei Kuznetsov's flanker so many hits during the initiation that this round of drifting was more akin to pool or a bowling match, to the point where he even broke his door. And it's obvious who's at fault. Then Dmitry got a clean lead run in, Sergei was super cautious though not inactive while following, and the latter earned the win. Now the OMTs. In the first one of those, Maxim Grossman finally got a confident win over Vladislav Popov, earning 4 more points in the lead, and sticking closer in the chase. Davidance did want to send them to another OMT, because in his opinion, yes, Grossman did do a better job leading, but Popov was taking more risks while following, and had the upper hand in some of the more valuable sectors. But the other 2 judges disagreed. OMT number 2, Arkady Tsarogratsev outcompeted Grigory Burlutsky. Despite making a mistake while initiating, Arkady earned his 30 line points. Grigory had the same score, but while following, he was way further behind. And so the last vacant spot on the top 8 grid goes to Tsarogratsev. At least from here, things became more or less transparent. For the most part, anyway. Maxim Grossman and Damir Idiatulin were both decent leaders, with each of them earning max points, though Grossman was a lot closer while following through sectors 1 and 2, even though he lightly tapped his opponent while initiating. Damir seemed to lack the speed, and he corrected, and so Grossman wins this one. Timofey Dobrovolsky, despite earning the same amount of points for line as Andrei Ostapov, with both earning max points. But overall, he had a 4.5 point advantage over Andrei. Also, his initiation while he was chasing was amazing, and he was better through sectors 1 and 2. Andrei only had the upper hand at touch-and-go 6 and 7, both finished identically while following. Dobrovolsky wins based on scores. I am worried about how they're gonna judge me next week, but I mean, I always enjoy driving with Andrei. For some reason, we often run into each other. On Thursday, there was practice in the rain, and I had a couple of runs with him, and I was able to sort of gauge how he navigates the course. I mean, throughout the event, Andrei was super quick and consistent, but I was able to gain the upper hand in certain spots. Yet another heat in between teammates effectively ends in round 1 during the initiation. Roman Tivadar, who was the leader, was slapped with an unchaseable run. Yes, he was at a huge angle, just like Dobrovolsky in the top 16, however his speed dropped all the way to 35 km an hour, which was not at all conducive to tandem drifting. Props to Georgy Chivchian for saving the run, both cars made it to the line without getting damaged. Round 2, Chivchian was not trying all that hard, with a wheel going off twice, though otherwise no serious mistakes. Roman did a decent job following, but it should be obvious by now who earned the win for this one. Good to see that nobody got a tap or spun out during the final duel of this stage. Both Arkady Tsarogratsev and Sergei Kuznetsov were good in the lead, earning max points for line, but while following, Tsarogratsev was noticeably closer, and so he is in the top 4. My best battle was with Kuznetsov, of course, because I was on point. I did well following, gave him a good lead run. The first race of the semifinals, and time goes by and nothing changes. The first portion of the heat, well, at least nobody stopped. Maxim Grossman appeared to do well in the lead, hitting every clip. Timofey Dobrovolsky was doing well following until the 7s, where he fell behind somewhat. Round 2, they initiate, and yet another collision. There have been so many, we've lost count. 2 of the 3 judges decided Grossman was at fault here. The editor was asked to get a comment from Mikhail Davidans as to why he sided with Grossman. And according to Mikhail, Timothy made his fair share of mistakes while initiating. His usual rapid acceleration and initiation backfired this time around. Dobrovolsky was carrying too much speed, so was his opponent behind him. He was going off course, corrected. He pulled the handbrake after the acceleration line in order to hit touch-and-go 2. In the words of Davidans, his movements during the initiation were very erratic and chaotic. If Grossman had moved towards the inside to avoid the collision, he still would have hit Dobrovolsky, because that's where Timothy was headed. As such, according to Mikhail, Tim was the one who caused this situation to manifest. Again, the other 2 judges disagreed, as they were judging the fact as opposed to guessing what could have happened. Honestly, the situation with Dobrovolsky is hard to fathom. I had a nice clean lead run, but while following, while we were accelerating, he pulled away from me, and I realized that he was overdoing it, and so I delayed my initiation like I was supposed to. I assumed the correct angle, but then his front end broke loose, he got on throttle way past the line, and so of course I hit him. What else was supposed to happen? During the initiation, my front axle began to wash out, but I wasn't losing a lot of speed. Well, at least I wasn't trying to slow down. I feel like if there hadn't been a collision, then I would have hit the inner touch and go, without losing a massive amount of speed. And now after watching the footage, I realized that even if I hadn't made a mistake during the initiation, and if I would have hit the inner touch and go without understeering, Max would have still rammed into me because his speed, looking at the broadcast, it was much higher, and the drift dynamics data indicate that he was initiating at a higher speed, and with a slight delay. Also, throughout that entire stretch where I was slowing down, his speed was not decreasing relative to mine. He wasn't even attempting to decelerate, and bring his own speed closer to mine. A classic showdown in the Russian drifting world, Arkady Tsarogratsev versus Georgy Chivchyan. And yet another heat was handily won by Georgy Chivchyan. Straight away, while he was leading, Arkady missed touch and go too. Also, 2 of his wheels went off course, leaving him with 20 line points. Don't even want to think about his angle and style. In turn, Gocha was being cautious in that spot, but from there he stuck close to his opponent all the way to the end. Round 2, Gocha allowed a wheel to go off once, but that was it. Tsarogratsev, meanwhile, wasn't as close or in step. I did well enough chasing, that wasn't an issue. I lost because my lead run wasn't great. Round 1 of the battle for 3rd place went smoothly. Maxim Grossman did a decent job leading, Arkady Tsarogratsev was close, except for in a few spots. Round 2, and Maxim decides to turn this into a pool match during the initiation. But Arkady still managed to get back on course and make it to the finish. From there, Grossman was looking good, but his obvious mistake during the initiation means that 3rd place goes to Tsarogratsev. I was 100% sure that I'd won, because while Arkady was leading, he made a mistake. Well, I mean, he slipped, just like he already had before, in the same spot that he did with Georgy Chivchyan. And so there was a tap, but it was unavoidable. I mean, I can't stop just like that. After all, this is drifting, sometimes it can get physical. But I kept going, he kept going. But even after the collision, I was sticking much closer than he was. Or so I think, at least. I had a quick look at that run right before the award ceremony, and I seemed to be closer and more in step. But the judges apparently decided otherwise. Against Maxim Grossman, I did a decent enough job following. I wasn't perfect, but okay given the conditions. I did have a mishap in the lead, but in an attempt to catch up to me, Maxim Grossman gave me a hit. Which is why he lost, but he essentially forfeited the win. Because if he would have gotten next to me and waited for me to get through, then I would have lost. Maybe at least during the final battle of this event there won't be any collisions. Well, there wasn't any heavy hitting going on, but Georgy Chivchyan, and he obviously wasn't doing it on purpose. But he was not allowing Timofey Dobrovolsky to initiate, which he was able to, even though it did cost him his rear bumper, which for about half of the run he was using to slap his opponent and teammate as punishment for his wrongdoing, with him continuing to stick close. In the end, that rear bumper fell off and found its way underneath Chivchyan's Z, but this didn't bother him. Gocha even said that he didn't notice anything and just happily made it to the finish, as did Timofey, of course. Both called for 5 minutes to fix whatever they could on their cars, and both were composed during round 2. Georgi earned 28 line points, while Timofey was close, even though he was carrying too much speed at the end, with one wheel going off course, which didn't keep him from receiving the gold medal. I'm quite satisfied with that final race with Gaucham, because I was able to initiate with aplomb, which is something that I wasn't always able to do while tandem drifting, but here I did well, maybe except for the final transition. My best run had to be the final one. I was calm and collected, I was up against my teammate Timofey. We made slight contact, I gave him a tap during the initiation, he was able to work around it. He even hit touch and go 1, and we were on our way, and I think that was a pretty spectacular round. He gave me a solid response, and the results of the final race were not bad. The spectacle aspect. I want to say we're really happy for Timofey, the entire team, and me personally. This is Timofey's first podium finish in Krasnoyarsk, and some great motivation for next weekend's RDS Open event. Hopefully he shows some good results there as well. Well, here's hoping that the weather won't be as hectic during the final few races of this season. But if we look on the bright side, this event really mixed things up. And leading up to the penultimate 6th stage of RDS GP, the competition among both drivers and teams is looking extremely intense. There's a mere 36-point difference between 1st and 4th place, and 5, 6, 7 aren't that far behind. When it comes to the teams, not much of a difference between 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Even 4 and 5 have got a shot at winning the championship. All the better for the viewers. And the situation in RDS Open is pretty similar. After the recent event in Krasnoyarsk, which happened to be the first dry one of the entire year, it's only clear who the winner is in the next category and the champions among the teams. Those would be Timofey Dobrovolsky and Star Pure Stars Aimol, who won Stage 6. As for the Pro class, the competition is still hot and can go in any direction. So make sure to buy your tickets to the remaining RDS Open and GP events, as well as to the Superfinals on tickets.vdrifte.ru. Watch the broadcasts on RDS TV and on the socials. That's it for another video review. Now a word from the prize-winning drivers. I'd say it went well. My car was feeling good. Also, I was able to dial in the settings for a wet track. So I was ready, I went out. As soon as there was a window for me to go out, warm up and get some practice. But I couldn't get much in, because straight away I hit that puddle in the initiation zone, and my throwout bearing left the chat. That meant removing the gearbox, and it was straight into the top 32 with one reconnaissance lap. I got all the way to the top 4, and that's it. Honestly, my driving sucked big time. It's as if I lost my lead driving skills. During practice, everything was great, but during the tandem drifting in the top 4 and when battling for 3rd place, I kept slipping up and missing the clip. I don't even know. I'm honestly at a loss for words, that was awful. I have dealt with such weather on the Red Ring before. I learned how to drive here, I practiced here a lot. The surface, of course, has changed, a lot of patches were repaved, and so traction isn't quite the same, but it's still all very familiar. This was mostly a wet weather event. When we were driving on dry pavement on Thursday and Friday, I told my teammates enjoy this while you can, because the forecast said it was gonna rain on the weekend, and rain it did. And so we were already setting our cars up, bearing in mind that it'll definitely rain on Sunday, and so we were going in fully prepared. Overall, I'm satisfied with how the grid was put together. I only got to Roman in the top 8, so I'm satisfied more or less. Saturday overall, together with the team, we came to the conclusion that Saturday is the most difficult day, and on Saturday you begin to hate drifting. Thank God they put me and Roman in the final group, so I didn't have to wake up as early and I got a good night's sleep. Thanks to that I qualified well. Then I wanted to get a spectacular run in. but I only got 80 points for it. Though before I got a good result, it was pretty difficult, and for a few reasons actually. First off, over the last 4 to 5 years, our team has been struggling at our home track in Krasnoyarsk, and so every time we come back here, there's always that extra bit of pressure. But this time we got here way in advance, we were enjoying the local scenery, and I don't know, it might have been the Siberian vibes. Yeah, that might have helped us out. But on Thursday and Friday we were struggling to set up the car, we couldn't find the speed. But it just so happened that when it started to rain on Saturday, things were sort of going in our favor. I have no idea how. Perhaps during the earlier stages I was lucky enough to avoid serious competitors. Unlike Roman, who immediately was put up against Yevgeny Losyev. That battle was particularly taxing for him, especially mentally. For me, though, it was a slow build-up, and contending with the two-time world champion in the end was not a problem for me. I mean to say I wasn't nervous. I went out there calm, especially since it was my teammate, and we had accomplished everything we set out to, earning maximum points for the team. And so all I wanted to do was put on a show. Because honestly, I didn't get too many good tandem runs in today. A lot of them didn't quite go the way I wanted them to, which left me a bit unsatisfied. It was a bit of a fly in the ointment, if you will. Overall, most of the battles I won during this event were because of how incredibly fast my car was, thanks to my wonderful team. This allowed me to compensate for some of my mistakes when I was following, and on a wet surface the car was practically driving itself. I didn't do anything, it was doing everything for me. And I guess this allowed me to be more consistent compared to previous events. As always, prepare for victory. We're out to win, and so we, the entire team, are gonna get ready for the last 2 races that are left. Right now we're on our home turf, our cars are here, so we'll service them as best we can given the conditions. And in about 1 week's time, we're gonna send the trailer out towards the west. It's a 4,500 kilometer journey, and within that time frame, we'll do some work, get some rest, for us to be fresh when it's time for the next event. Hopefully when we're in St. Petersburg, we get lucky with the weather. But I have no idea what to expect from the Agora Drive racetrack, because 2 years ago I was really having a hard time with that layout, despite me becoming best in qualifying. In the dry I was really struggling. However, that was back then, and since then we have seriously upgraded my car for high-speed initiation, so I might have it easier this time. Maybe I might have found a way to make my driving more consistent. As for what I expect from this event, well, beautiful scenery for sure, almost like in Karelia. And most importantly, I hope there's no rain. The Moscow Raceway, the inverted layout, is my favorite of the entire series. I can't wait to drive on it. I was just told that I even have a slim chance of becoming champion, and so I don't want to embarrass myself at Agora Drive. I want to maintain that advantage, and at the Moscow Raceway I'm confident that I'll be able to contend with the likes of Artyom Shabanov, Anton Kozlov, and other elite drivers. I would love to have a go with them, take part in some tight tandem drifting. The inverted Moscow Raceway layout is actually conducive to tandem drifting. I would really like for a lot of people to come see the final race because I just had a look at the tournament table and it is going to be awesome. Hopefully not much changes after the race in St. Petersburg, and that for the final race we see an epic battle. I'm actually just 30 points away from being first in the championship, so I'm going to do my very best to win both at Agora and at the Moscow Raceway so that I become the champion. That, of course, is not a given, but I do have a fighting chance. The opportunity has appeared. The boys are ready. I think if we deliver the cars to St. Petersburg right now by helicopter, they'll be ready to go just like I am.